Do you want to stay more focused on the right goals in your life, or even just figure out what the right goals are for you? Do you want clarity? Do you want better work-life balance? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Success Through Failure.
Welcome to the Success Through Failure podcast, the show that reveals failure as your path to success. You'll listen to intriguing interviews with some of the most successful people on the planet and learn how their failures became a launchpad for success and how yours can too. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, speaker, and personal coach, Jim Harshaw.
Welcome to another episode of Success Through Failure. Today, I bring you Ruari Fairbairns. Before I bring on my guest, I need to share something important. For years, I struggled to feel confident around the type of people that I spend much of my time with. Successful people, millionaires, CEOs, and leaders. Part of it was mindset, but also part of it is how I looked. Look good, feel good, as the saying goes. And I didn't look good. I didn't have clothes that made me feel confident. So I started buying expensive shirts, but then I had to get them tailor fit to me and athletic build. Then I discovered a new shirt. It's not only designed by athletes for athletes, it's designed to fit an athlete's body type. And it's made of athletic material. It's like putting on your favorite workout shirt, but it's a business shirt. It's machine washable and wrinkle free, which is a total deal breaker for me. I hate high maintenance clothing. And it looks better than the expensive shirts that I used to buy, and it even costs less. Now I feel confident that I'm wearing good-looking, well-fitted clothing that's designed to fit me. You can try one on yourself, totally risk-free because it's free shipping for you, one of my listeners. Just visit their website, stateandliberty.com, and use the discount code SUCCESS. That's State and Liberty, S-T-A-T-E, stateandliberty.com, and use the discount code SUCCESS. Returns and exchanges are totally free within 30 days, so there's absolutely zero risk for you to try one on. Again, go to stateandliberty.com and use the discount code SUCCESS. Ruari is an entrepreneur and co-founder of the 1 Year No Beer movement. He gave up drinking in the face of incredible peer pressure, thinking that he would lose his edge as one of the top brokers in the world in his industry. He soon realized it was quite the opposite. And spurred by this life-changing experience, he and Andy Ramage have created the 1 Year No Beer movement. Ruari speaks about improving all aspects of your life by changing your relationship with alcohol. And after 2 years alcohol-free, Ruari now drinks in total control. He is passionate about helping people change their relationship with alcohol using their 30, 90, and 365-day challenges. And for the listener, if you don't have time to listen to this entire episode, or if you hear something you like, but you don't have time to write it down, make sure you grab your free copy of the action plan, all the action items, all the tips and tactics and great quotes from this episode. Just go to jimharshawjr.com/action. Ruari, welcome to the show.
Jim, so good to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Well, I had to clarify your pronunciation of your name because in the way that you had told me to remember it was it rhymes with brewery, and it's interesting that now your one of your vocations is the 1 Year No Beer movement. So let's start with this, Ruari. Tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got from there to where you're at now.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm Scottish. You might not tell from my accent, or you may feel like I've got a very strong Scottish accent. But I was born on a small island off the west coast of Scotland. Never too far away from having a drink. You know, we drink pretty heavily on the west coast of Scotland, and I had a great life growing up there. I soon found myself working in a sort of sales roles, and fell sideways into a sort of entrepreneurial role. I set up my first business when I was 16, and I had multiple businesses. I think by the time I was 21, I'd set up 5 different businesses, the largest of which I employed 10 people for 3 years. We were a sales outsourcing for tech businesses. And all the way through this, I've always been a very, very sociable chap, and that, good at meeting people and whining and dining and that kind of stuff. So I found not that I had a particularly unhealthy relationship with alcohol, just that later on in life, things were starting to cause a bit of trouble. I moved down to London and I started a job as a broker, an oil broker, which is what I do now. And I found, that when I was broking, I was very, very good at it, very switched on, but also very good at the entertaining side of things. It's a great job. You get to take people out at night and lunches during the day, and I just found alcohol quite central. And that's fine when you're on your own. But then my wife came along, and suddenly I had a kid, and all of these problems started to arrive. And from these problems, not just that, I had some health issues. So I went in to go and have myself examined for a stomach ulcer. And it wasn't a stomach ulcer. It was just acid reflux. And I thought, I've got to do something about this. I've got to change something that's going on here. And the people I work with were like, there's nothing wrong with you. Don't worry about it. You're absolutely fine. I remember coming back from doing the acid reflux exam, and the guys were like, "Why did you go to the doctor? Are you crazy?" And I told them how many units I had. And you were like, "Oh, you're absolutely mad. That will go on your insurance." So there's this very shadowy conversation about alcohol. So we're cutting right into everything here, but so I decided randomly to take a 90-day break from alcohol. And it was then that so much in my life transformed. I just felt fitter, happier. All of these problems suddenly disappeared. And as you say now, now I've done 2 years alcohol-free. I'm very, very passionate about helping people discover the same thing, that right in front of them, there is a massive game changer out there, and that is to change their relationship with alcohol. That was a little whistle-stop tour of my life.
Yeah, well, that's good. So the one thing that really stuck out to me there is you said you didn't have a particularly unhealthy relationship with alcohol, but you wanted to do something about it. So, the average person probably might relate to that. Some people maybe drink a little bit, feel like they maybe do have a problem, either a little bit or a lot of bit of a problem, or some people are on the other end of the spectrum. But I think the bell curve, most people are somewhere in the middle. So for the person who says, yeah, I don't really have trouble with alcohol, it doesn't really affect me. How do you address that person? Because it sounds like that's kind of where you were at, but you experienced significant change from stepping away from it completely for 90 days.
That's exactly it. This is what fires me up, because it's such a paradox. Take in one hand that since before any of us were old enough to comprehend, we've been watching our parents, aunties, uncles, friends celebrate, commiserate, congratulate with alcohol. It's so ingrained in your brain that what you do is you use alcohol in every scenario. And, I found, but yet there are these incredible benefits to be got from dropping it for a period. So when I said I didn't have a problem, I just want to quantify that. Through work, I would end up being merry or pissed maybe once or twice a week. And then at the weekends, I'd probably be pissed with friends. Okay. That to me sounds like a normal 20s, 30s relationship with alcohol.
In American terms, that's drunk, by the way, for those
drunk. Yeah, sorry.
That's great.
Yeah, sorry. Drunk. And and so the reality is, I never came home and finished off a bottle or drinking on my own or that kind of problem drinker. So that's why I'm helping people to realize this. What we're finding, and I mentioned this just before we actually started this podcast, what we're finding is if you look at all the search terms that people are looking for out there in relation to alcohol, what they're typing in is alcohol causing my headache? Is alcohol causing my sleeplessness? Is alcohol destroying my relationships? Is alcohol causing me whatever it is, IBS, etc.? Now that was me. I thought it was. I thought I had IBS, and it's actually just the fact that I was regularly drinking all the time. All that stuff started to clear up. So nobody, and if you think about it again, nobody wants to give up drinking. Why would you want to? It's awesome fun. It's absolutely hilarious. You get high, let loose, have a great time. What people don't want is the consequences. And that's the bit I'm trying to reach out to people, is that I reckon, without a shadow of a doubt, if you're drinking regularly above the legal amount, now here, the recommended amount is 14 units, and that's really not much. You're talking about 7 pints of beer a week, okay? If you're drinking more than that, I absolutely promise you're going to have changes in your life you never imagined after you give up for an extended period. Minimum 30 days, absolute minimum, but we recommend going longer. Now, I want to give you a little overview of what some of those things are. The vast majority of people say that their anxiety has gone, okay? Not just reduced, but gone. Sleeplessness, although it does get rougher to begin with, does get so much better, sleeping better. And you know what's funny is people say, I need alcohol to drift off to sleep at night. I need to unwind. But what's really truthful is that alcohol is causing that thing in the first place. You know how you drink coffee because you're tired, get all overstimulated, brain is overstimulated, don't sleep so well, drink coffee because you're tired. That's exactly the same as alcohol. Alcohol begets alcohol. So you're tired, it's causing anxiety, it's causing depression, you want the uplift again, you need alcohol again, you need it again, you need it again. But when you take it away and you go through, yes, we all go through a little bit of withdrawal symptoms, mostly less than large, you are removing all that fakeness, all that overstimulus into your system, and you're starting to live really. And I was just going through the list of some of the changes. So we got a guy over in Dubai who tried 5 years of IVF, and he was told because of low sperm count, he would never have kids naturally. And after 100 days on the OAMB challenge, they were pregnant. Now they've had their baby, and they've called her Amber Faith. And they tell everyone that's the OYMB baby, the first OYMB baby. We've got guys who've got psoriasis cleaning up. I mentioned about depression and anxiety, the feeling that you get, that uplift in your life. So, excuse me while I rant on, but I do get very, very passionate because this is something that people aren't really looking at. Yes, they've thought, maybe I'm drinking too much. But I'm like, well, hang on, guys. Have you considered for 1 second how much better your life might get if you drop this just for 90 days? So, yeah.
And, you were already one of the best at what you did. It sounded like one of the best in the world at what you did as a broker, but you still felt like you needed to make a change, because there's a lot of folks who are listening to this who either they already feel like they're a peak performer, or probably more likely they feel like that in some sense, but they're listening to this right now because they want to become even better, right? They're looking for any little nugget that they can find to be a little bit better. So this sounds like one opportunity, one chance to give something a try. And so you have, your brand is kind of 1 year no beer, but you also have you can start by sticking your toe in the water, right? With a 30 or 90 day challenge.
That's it. Exactly. So just winding back about that peak performance, because this is key. So Andy, my co-founder, who's also a broker in London, he is an ex-professional footballer, and he's somebody who has always sought out peak performance in his life. And the thing is, I was extremely good at being a broker, and what are you talking about? I still am. I extremely good at being a broker, but I found that what was so intrinsically was, in order to be a good broker, I need to be good at entertaining, I need to take people out, and therefore this is causing me a problem. And I wondered what would happen if I dropped it. Now, I know there'll be many people out there who'll be listening to this and thinking, no, don't be stupid. I have to drink when I'm out with customers, or my boss expects me to have a drink with him when we're talking about blah, 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 or all these excuses. And I believe that too. I totally believed it. I actually thought my business was going to go down. I thought I would lose my edge. And I made that commitment. I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this, but I think I'm going to lose my edge as a broker. I didn't. I grew my business by 50%, and I reduced my costs by 30% in the first year. That's a massive change.
Wow.
And what I did was I changed the way I entertained. Instead of doing a boozy 3-hour lunch with each individual guy, we did a 25-man, 5-team relay race around the Olympic Stadium. It was months of training. We bought branded T-shirts. It cost a tenth of one of these crazy events. And it brought so much more camaraderie and so much more team spirit, and released all those endorphins and, et cetera, and dopamine that you get instead of just doing one lunch. So I had to swap up switch up the way I was entertaining with people.
And so you had to be a little bit creative, had to think outside of the box and try some new things. And I think we always tend to limit ourselves and say, this is the way it's done, and this is the way it has always been done, and this is the way I need to continue to do it because that's the way I did it yesterday. And I think sometimes you just have to force yourself to say, what if? What if it could be done differently? How would that hypothetically be done? And just kind of think of that as a hypothetical to allow your mind just sort of to expand. And then when you do that, sometimes you come up with, usually I find you come up with new solutions that are not only different, but better.
That's exactly. I love that thinking. And, we've been chatting to Anheuser-Busch, the AB InBev, because we're going to work on, hopefully we'll work some bits and pieces of this, but to the guys out there, this is not just about turning to water. Over here in the UK, I'm sure in the world, but globally this is changing. We've got some amazing non-alcoholic alternatives. Now, in our program and also directly, we can teach you how to go out with customers and have them think that you're drinking all night. We can show you all the cheating tactics that we've used as brokers so that you don't have to tell people. Because in reality, sometimes there are that odd customer dinner, that odd event where you think, you'll be at a downside from that person if you don't have a drink. And there's ways to get around that with, stealth drinking, watering the plants, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry.
And you also talk about it sounds like you went on a 2-year no drinking stint, but now you drink some now. Is that right? You feel like you're exactly more, you control it more. So tell me about that.
So we did the 2 years, and through the 2 years, I felt to myself that I was preaching or saying that there's no upside from alcohol, and yet I wasn't feeling it. Now, what I mean by that is I think it's perfectly acceptable if you can, and you are that type of person, to go and have a drink on a Saturday night with some friends once in a while because it's a special occasion and not worry about it. And you know what? I know I'm going to be worse with my kids the next day. I'm going to be, it's going to be a Moana on repeat Father Day, right? Or parenting by iPad. But it's okay for you to do that once in a while. The thing for me was, because I took those 2 years off, I really dove deep into my neuroscience. I really dove deep into the NLP and the behavioral change. And this is what we put into this package. So that we could really rewire those brain cells. So I didn't feel I needed it. I didn't feel I needed it to relax. I didn't feel I needed it to enjoy time with friends. I could have half a beer and not carry on if they felt like, and I wouldn't suffer so much from peer pressure. So that's what we're trying to teach. We're trying to teach people how to reset that relationship. And the best way to reset the relationship is to take an extended break. Minimum 30 days, 90 days. But when you do that, and when you start going to whatever these events are, weddings, stag do's, bachelor parties, corporate events, when you go there and don't drink alcohol, and you have an incredible feeling the next day, you wake up and go, I can't believe I survived that wedding or that, I've done lots of stag weekends. I've done a stag weekend in Berlin where I didn't touch a drop. And the feeling I get after completing it, just if I pause there for 1 second, imagine I'm doing a Spartan race with my wife. I'm 5 hours into this Spartan race, and I look round at her and I go, Jen, why do we do this to ourselves? And she smiles back at me and she says, babe, it's because the feeling afterwards, not during.
Yeah.
Right? And that is why we do these challenges. That's why we go out and we want to conquer something or do something. And that's exactly the same with this. When you come and you do something which in society's eyes would be really difficult alcohol-free, like Christmas, New Year, when you do that alcohol-free, you literally rewire your brain to realize that you didn't need it. And all of the feelings of accomplishment that you get from doing a challenge like that last you a lifetime. The amount of times you say to people, oh, I didn't drink at New Year, and they go, what? Really? That's amazing. You've got so much willpower. A little pat on the back. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you talk about using cutting edge habit changing science like NLP, neuro linguistic programming. Tell me about some of this, because I know that my listeners are interested in cutting edge habit changing science. I mean, what kind of stuff have you learned through your research in that?
Tons. Tons of stuff. And so we had our program quantified by Stirling University in terms of behavioral change techniques. We use 14 different BCTs layered throughout the challenge. We don't
What's
talk
a BCT?
about behavioral change technique.
Okay.
A registered behavioral change technique. So we don't talk about them like this is a behavioral change technique. We do in the wider program explain a bit more detail. But what we do is we get you to do the thing. And by doing it, you are following that behavioral change. You are following that pattern. You are rewiring your brain. One of those perfect examples is inside all of us is a very, very deep need to be part of a tribe. Now, that tribalism is what keeps people drinking because they believe they want to belong to society and they can't see any other alternative. To go outside of that tribalism is to go away from the tribe. Now, when you leave the tribe, people get very defensive. And you see that if you say, I'm not drinking tonight, people go, what? What's wrong with you? Why? Because they're fearful. They're fearful that you're leaving the tribe. And the key to this whole program is that we build a tribe for you to belong to during your challenge, okay? Through social media, which is the wonder of social media we have today. And we have meetups all over the world now, but primarily the social media, the forum. You get to spend your time belonging to a tribe that enables you to feel that you can belong somewhere whilst you're creating this new learning. Okay, so there's one example. Another example is what I mentioned about swapping out the alcohol-free alternatives. Now, this is literally rewiring your brain. So I come home usually, let's say you come home on a Friday and you look at every Friday, you normally crack open a nice beer and you watch sport, okay? That's what you do every Friday. It's your reward. You deserve it. You've done it for 10 years. Now think about how ingrained that is in your brain. So let's not change all of that at once, okay? Because inside this habit cue reward, Charles Duhigg, the habit cue, you are trying to, feel more relaxed. You are trying to take the edge off your day, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of what you're doing is not the alcohol. And we can prove that by getting some great alcohol-free alternatives, have the same bottle, the same similar taste, put the same program on, and you will still feel a large percentage of the reaction. I'm not here to pretend to you that there are no relaxing features from alcohol. Obviously there are. It's a drug. But what I am saying is that a very large percentage of your drinking is just habit. And we help you unwind that and we help you realize it. And then you go, you know what? I didn't need it to relax. I didn't need it to have a good time, etc.
Yeah, so Charles Duhigg wrote, I think it was called The Power of Habit.
The Power of Habit, yeah.
Book, right?
That's exactly it.
Great book. And he talks about cue, routine, reward. And so basically you're talking about the same cue, coming home and wanting to watch some sports and cracking open a beer. That's the cue, the watching of sports. And you're changing the routine, but you still want to have a reward. And when you can do that, when you can just change the routine, I guess is the key point, right? That you're trying to change the routine. I mean, are there times where also you may want to change the cue? Or is it primarily the routine you're trying to change?
The routine. Yeah. Because and a lot of people, they come and they do 30 days off booze, and what they do is they put their whole life on hold. They avoid social circles. They don't go to those places where they feel like they're going to get cravings. They learn precisely nothing. That is not what
sustainable.
No. So don't do that. With our plan, what we do is we get you going to those same places. You just work out what you're really craving, and you switch it up a little bit. Now, I'm not saying go to the pub every single time during your first 30 days, because of course that's going to be really, really tough. You're going to need some willpower. But we are saying you still need to do it a bit because you need to help yourself rewire. And instead, maybe on Friday night, instead of going straight to the pub, go with a bunch of mates to a spin class or go-karting or blah, blah, blah. And you can get similar dopamine releases from doing exercise. It sounds like your listeners are very, a lot of you very exercise focused.
Yeah, and a lot of former athletes, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Well, so our challenge is very exercise focused. And that's because exercise is literally the antidote to drinking alcohol. Nobody's out there. Well, apart from this recent craze going out on Facebook for beer yoga, but I think that's just for clicks rather than true. But interestingly, we have a large number of personal trainers, yoga experts, fitness experts who have come onto our challenge, who you'd think were peak performance, very healthy people, but have still come back and gone, I cannot believe the changes from removing alcohol from my life. And we have one member in particular, she's just so fired up by this. She didn't believe she would have such an upgrade from dropping something so simple.
So I always ask my guests to share a time where you've failed. And here's kind of how I want to maybe frame this question for you, Ruari. Can you share with us, maybe it's a time when you failed, or maybe it's a time, because I know you've had a bunch of startups. You and I talked off air, and you've talked about the various startups you've had, but maybe a time you failed, but also, or instead, a time when either you or somebody who's been on 1 Year No Beer has failed, but sort of the learning that came from that ultimately led to success. Because I'm sure a lot of people try either 30 days or 90 days or a year of no beer or no alcohol, and they fail at some point. And maybe they feel like a failure, and they have that sort of like, I can't do this. This just isn't for me. I'm not strong enough. I don't have the willpower, but eventually came around and succeeded in some other way.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I think about what I feel about failure, I believe that it's a bit like life is a bit like the robotic Hoover. First time you ever place it down in a room, it has to bump off absolutely everything before it works out what the true path is. And that's kind of how I've gone through my life, bumping and bashing off everything.
That's a great analogy.
I've had a lot of failure, but inside, deep down, I have never doubted. And I've always said, I know that this is a path. I'll give you a little example. So when I wound up the 10-person business in Edinburgh, the sales outsourcing company, and I moved back onto my home island, and I was drinking a bit too much, and somebody said, go and apply for The Apprentice. And I'd never seen The Apprentice. So I went home after a few beers, filled out the application form with a bit of banter, and next minute, wind forward a few months and loads of interviews and flying down to London for interviews, I found myself standing outside the show, bags packed, ready to go on. And for 4 hours, the producer kept coming in and out, going, you're going on the show, you're not going on the show, you're going on the show. And over here, this is Alan Sugar, right, who does the Apprentice show.
So for the listener, The Apprentice in the United States was with Donald Trump, and then with
yeah, that's
I think
right.
Schwarzenegger. But this all started in England, right?
Yeah, we kicked it off.
Yeah, you guys started it, and so what was the name you said again? Mr. Sugar?
It was Sir Alan Sugar.
Sir Alan Sugar, and he was the host. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. He was.
Okay, and so go ahead, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, so they eventually said, "Look, I'm really sorry. We can't explain it this time, but you're not going on the show. We'll fly you back to Scotland." And I got back to the airport, and I was like, I can't go back there. I've told everybody on the island I'm going on this show. So I looked at the departures board, and I was like, look, I'll take the next flight to Ibiza. So Ibiza is a crazy, crazy party island in Spain. So I flew out to this crazy party island, and had a great time for a couple of days. And then I phoned around and said, does anybody know anyone here? And I ended up staying at a villa with some friends. And lo and behold, one person there I got introduced to was a broker at the company I now work at. And he got me the oil broking job. So a very random way for me moving down to London. But at every step of that part, I always felt, I don't know where this is taking me, but I know that I'm learning from it. And I know I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah, the door could open around the next corner. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to stay positive, and you've got to stay open to opportunity at every case, because you never know. And that's the other thing I feel, is that I feel really that the hardships we have, almost like bring them on, because I know that those are what maketh the man. I know that my hard times are what have created me and made me today. And translating that into how OYMB works, we don't punish anyone who slips up. The important thing is about the learning. So if you accidentally have a few drinks while you're on your 90-day challenge and you go, God damn it, I wish I hadn't done that, the next day, and you sit down and you work out, why was it? Was it the smell of the crisps, or did somebody come round that evening? How can I do that better next time? Then we're not going to reset your days. Just carry on, put it as a blip, add it on to the end. Because it's when you start forcing people into resetting and constantly getting stuck in that difficult that they won't learn anything.
Sure. And so what would you recommend as far as my listeners like to get an action item that they can take in the next 24 to 48 hours to start moving towards their goals? So would you recommend certainly checking out your website or signing up for one of your programs? Tell us about sort of a next step that you can recommend.
Absolutely. I mean, if you've had any inkling or thinking, I'm wondering if there is any upside, maybe this is going to clear up some of my issues or make me better productive, make me a better father, make me a better husband or wife or mother, then absolutely, come and have a look at the website. You've got a 4-day video series free to try and change your mindset. I think that's really the key, is that what we provide is a complete mindset shift. And that during the challenge, you're going to change your mindset about alcohol, and put it into a much better space. So yeah, if you've had any inklings to that, check out the website. We also have a podcast, but we're not running. There's a lot of really good people on there who will help you get your mind in the right order. I will say though that for a lot of people, this may be the first time you're just thinking about this, and this change can be quite a big one and a difficult one. And part of it is just, admitting to yourself. And that might not happen right away. So I would just say, come and, stick your email address in, and we'll keep in touch with you gently and keep feeding ideas into your brain. And you know what? When the time is right, 3 months, 6 months, I don't know, you might do it with January, then we're here for you to help you.
So, Ruari, can you let the listener know kind of where they can find you, follow you, get more information about 1 Year No Beer, et cetera?
Absolutely. So the website is oneyearnobeer.com. We have a Facebook group, but you need to be signed up to be in there. You can catch me or add me on LinkedIn, catch me on there. Ruari Fairbairns, if you can spell that. I'm sure it'll be in Jim's show notes.
It will be in the action plan for the listener, yes.
I think the key point I mentioned about the tribe, the somebody to belong to, that's what everybody says is most special. We're over 16,000 members now in over 100 countries. We've definitely got some people near you, wherever you are. We've got a big following in the US, UK, Ireland, Australia. So, we can get people who will help you along.
Excellent. Ruari, I appreciate you making time to come on the show. Great advice. Great insight. For the listener, I have all the links to everything he just mentioned in the action plan. Just go to jimharshawjr.com/action. Thanks so much, Ruari.
Thank you, Jim.
And for the listener, until next time, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success.